Hey folks, Jason here with another drum set lesson. In this video I'm going to break down a traditional must-know Cuban groove known as the Bolero. Right now I'm working with a student on learning basic Cuban grooves for playing with a salsa band or a Cuban jazz band. And the Bolero is a must-know because it is a staple of sort of the ballad repertoire in Cuban music. Bolero traditionally is played on maracas and conga drums by the percussion section, but as you just heard, you can adapt it pretty easily to the drum set. This basic pattern is just the core template. There are literally hundreds of Bolero variations, and at some point I'm going to make a video breaking those down. I love playing Boleros, and I think it's an important thing for drummers, not just drummers who are playing Latin music or specifically Cuban music, but in any genre to learn because it teaches us restraint and dynamics and how to play melodically at the drum set. So let's dive right in and break down this pattern. So first and foremost, we have to think about the whole vibe of the Bolero, right? This is not a bash and crash groove. This is about being as soft as possible, playing quietly. One band leader I've worked with quite a bit, she described this pattern as almost being seductive, right? So there's this quiet, mysterious, seductive quality. So the pattern you hear me play at the top of the video, even if I play everything correctly, but without a light touch and a quiet sound, completely loses the feel. You've just ruined the whole vibe of the song, right? Everything should be as quiet as possible, almost act like a hum in the background. And this brings us to the two instruments, percussion instruments, that would traditionally play this groove in a Cuban ensemble, which were the maracas and the conga drums, played by a conguero. And the maracas would do this steady eighth note rhythm of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I've actually played maracas quite a bit with various groups, salsa bands, Cuban groups, so on and so forth. And I'll very often actually use just my fingertips on the maracas to get a very soft sound. Now, this means that you should practice getting the same kind of light touch and light sound on the snare drum. Start by just warming up with very, very soft eighth notes. Do that for like a minute. How softly can you play and keep a steady flowing pattern of eighth notes at that dynamic level or that volume? Now there's a very common embellishment, which is three notes, these 16th note triplets on the and of beat 1. So 1 deca da 2. So it sounds like this, 1 and 2, right? Again, that's 1 and 2. So those three notes in the middle happen on the and of 2. You want to make sure that these don't jump out and are louder because they're faster. So don't go 1 and 2, right? Everything should be as even as possible. So before we even add any other elements, practice doing this sticking with me. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And 4 and 4 and. Now the reason and 4 and is silent is this is where the conga part comes in. This is what the conguero or conga drummer would play. And between two drums, typically the saledor or tumbador, which is the lowest drum, and the conga, or maybe even the highest drum, which is the quinto, they're going to do this pattern in the space of and 4 and. This to me is one of the critical elements of a bolero groove, because it creates this sort of melodic gesture that leads us back into beat 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, right? And it helps to kind of create, again, this mysterious, quiet, seductive element to this music. So with this snare drum sticking of left, right, left, right, left, right, left, we're going to move with our right hand to the floor tom, bring our left hand up to the rack, right on the floor. It's going to look like this. 3 and 4. Slowly. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. And again, you might be like, Jason, that's very easy. But what makes it hard is you have to play as delicately and quietly as possible. Now, you can use any sticking you want for the snare drum part. I'm choosing to do left as the starting note on beat 1 because it gives me time to move from the rack toms. I've taught this groove to a lot of students, and one of the biggest things I notice happens when they play is this. When they're moving from and 4 and back to the snare, they whack the snare on beat 1. And 4 and 1. Well, you've just totally killed the whole vibe of the song. So starting with the left hand on the snare gives us a chance to do this. And 4 and Notice how as soon as I'm done with beat 4 on the rack, I'm scooping back down to the snare drum so I can get a nice controlled quiet tone. So I actually recommend isolating that movement and practicing it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Then add in the other parts. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Get to where you can do that very comfortably. You don't feel like you're tensing up or gripping the sticks harder. Everything is still in a very relaxed state in terms of how you're holding the stick and how you're positioning your fingers, wrists, and forearms. Now let's talk about the feet. These are things that you can add in to really create a sense of drive or propulsion for this groove. And what I'm doing is I'm playing just steady chord notes in the hi-hat, but I'm not doing sort of the classic rock and roll like John Bonham quarter notes where it's very aggressive and very loud and I'm doing a heel up movement. Instead, I'm keeping my heel down and I'm making sure that only this part of the cymbal is only hitting this part of the bottom cymbal. So rather than the entire metal circumference of the cymbal, if you will, hitting the entirety of the other bottom cymbal, I'm just trying to get maybe this half to hit the bottom cymbal. And so I'm doing this very gentle quarter note pulse. If I do it too loud, even if I'm playing everything else soft, again, we've totally destroyed the vibe of the song. So I recommend playing heel down and just doing a very gentle push. It should almost be imperceptible. It's a thing that the dancer or listener feels more than they hear. Once you've got that, the last part is one note in the kick drum. Sometimes I'll play it as part of a larger tresillo pattern, which is a 3-note pattern, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is a very ubiquitous rhythm in a lot of Latin American styles, not just Cuban music. But what I'm going to do instead is only accent the and of 2. So I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is lining up with what the bass player is playing in their tumbao, which is a rhythmic pattern. Boom, 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 right? So I'm just using it to subtly reinforce what the bassist is playing. Again, subtlety is the name of the game here, so if I'm really hammering into that kick drum, the whole vibe of the bolero is gone. So we put all these parts together, 1, 2, 3, 4, those quarter notes in the hi-hat, and then the and of 2 in the kick. That's 1, 2, and 3, and then add the snare. We get the following. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you'd like to leave a comment, please feel free to do so in the comments below. If you would like a sheet music transcription of what I just taught, you can also message me or leave a comment below. Really appreciate y'all's support and have a great rest of your day.